at Ethan's school, where he opened fire on his classmates, a gun his parents gave him. Now, the Crumbleys, the parents, were also the focus of a multi-agency manhunt last week before they were apprehended by police outside Detroit. You might have heard the couple has ties here in our area. They used to live and work in Jacksonville. And the tragedy in Michigan will be on the minds of those attending this week's Duval County School Board meeting. Advocates say they'll ask Superintendent Diana Green for a resolution that would send secure storage information about deadly weapons home to all DCPS families. With more about this, we welcome Katie Hathaway. She leads the local chapter of Moms Demand Action for Gun Sense in America. Katie Hathaway, good morning.
Good morning, Melissa. Thank you so much for having me.
And as we talk about gun safety and safe weapons storage, give us a call, folks. It's 549-2937. Emails to firstcoastconnect@wjct.org. Tweets to @MelissaInJax. Our Facebook page always open. So, Katie, in a moment, we'll talk about the school board meeting. But first, let's talk about what happened at the high school in Michigan, at Oxford High School, when this 15-year-old boy rampaged through the school shooting his classmates. The parents went on the lam. They actually have ties here to our area, the Crumbleys. They are now being tried for involuntary manslaughter because they allowed their child improper access to this deadly weapon. Let's talk about the legal precedent this sets and what this might mean for gun safety and gun accountability going forward. What are your thoughts as an advocate with Moms Demand?
Sure. Melissa, before we continue, I would like to say the names of the 4 beautiful lives that were stolen last week and to honor them this morning. And I invite everyone to say their names with me. Hannah St. Juliana, Tate Meir, Madison Baldwin, and Justin Schilling. Their lives matter. And as you said, the charges against the parents, they're a step toward accountability. However, they're never going to erase the scars that the entire Oxford High School community has to bear. But those charges do send a message that gun owners have a responsibility. And when they fail to uphold that responsibility, there are serious and criminal consequences. And this should send a wake-up call for all gun-owning parents and guardians. And we have to change our focus from being reactive to preventative, and that starts with secure gun storage. The bottom line is if children can't access a gun, they can't bring it to school and cause devastation. And secure storage laws should be nonpartisan, non-controversial, and non-political, and states should implement them now.
Yeah, it is interesting to see the parents now facing charges. That's a relatively new thing. We haven't seen that with past school shootings. And so we do know, Katie, that about 75% of these incidents happen when the child gets access to a deadly weapon at home through his parents or whoever he's living with at home. The Crumbleys apparently had not secured the gun properly. Their child was able to have easy access to it. And so tell us what that means here in our area, because certainly there are plenty of families right here in Jacksonville who have these kinds of weapons at home. A lot of them are responsible gun owners. Some of them are not. What does secure weapon storage look like? And how can this be mandated? How can you mandate something like this?
Well, secure gun storage means to secure firearms in the home, which means keeping them locked, unloaded, and separate from ammunition. And we have opportunities in this moment to help prevent the next tragedy. And they don't all have to involve legislation. We could roll out educational campaigns on secure gun storage in the home. As a gun safety activist, I attend community events and hand out gun locks all the time. And I can't tell you how many conversations I've had with people in our community as I hand them out. Many who have never thought to lock up their firearm in the home with a child present, or ask about the presence of unsecured firearms in other homes that their families visit. So it's about having those conversations. And again, like you said, I'm going to be attending the school board meeting tonight to advocate for secure storage practices to be sent home to all families in our county. It's on all of us to make our voices heard. And children shooting children, it's not normal, period.
So let's talk about that. You say you'll ask the Duval County School Board at their meeting tonight to send home information to parents about this how this school shooting reminds one of the need to securely store deadly weapons. That seems like a common sense piece of information to send home, but of course, everything around this issue is fraught and politicized. And so, what do you plan to say about this at the school board meeting?
I tend to tell them that we cannot let another tragedy drift into the background and not take the opportunity to do something in this moment. And as our volunteers, we advocate for the Be Smart program to reduce the number of child firearm deaths and injuries, youth suicides, and gunfire in school grounds that occur when guns are not secured storely. So it makes it super easy. Our program is simple, and it's for gun owners and non-gun owners alike to be smart. And the steps are simple. It's to secure all guns in homes and vehicles, model responsible behavior around guns, ask about the presence of unsecured firearms in other homes your child visits, recognize the role of guns in suicide, and lastly, to tell your peers to be smart. So anyone who's listening and wants more information can visit the website, which is besmartforkids.org. So that's what I'm going to be advocating for tonight at the school board meeting.
You know, when you look at the data around this, people have a weapon at home often because they feel it makes them safer. They think they're defending their home, right? But the data shows that you are not actually safer with a weapon in your home. You are more likely to have an accident with a gun in your home, particularly with a child who can get access to an unsecured weapon, or some other mishap, than you are to have to defend your home from an attacker. It's sort of like the way, Katie, people think they're safer driving to a destination than flying. You're more likely to get killed in a car crash than you are to be killed in a plane crash. But the illusion of safety is stronger when you're on the ground and driving your own vehicle. But the data is clear, isn't it?
It is clear. I hear you. And as a parent, it's terrifying to me sending my children to school. And as parents, we deserve the freedom to send our children to school to learn and not die. And our children deserve the freedom to live in a world without threats of gun violence, especially while at school.
Yeah, I mean,
so it's on all of us to speak up and take this opportunity to save one life if we have the opportunity to do so.
Well, let's go to some calls now. It's 549-2937 as we speak with Katie Hathaway, the local lead of Moms Demand, about gun safety and school shootings. Tom emails the show, anyone who doesn't properly secure their weapons should be held criminally responsible if the weapons are then used in a crime. Leaving them in unlocked cars is ridiculous. Local police every night try to exhort people to do a check to make sure they're not doing something like that, Tom. But you're right, that's a big issue too. 549-2937. Bob in Atlantic Beach. Hi, Bob.
Hi. I have two comments. First off, I do support safe storage of firearms. I'm a retired federal law enforcement officer, and I have seen in the past where unsafe storage can lead to incidents. However, I do not support charging the parents with criminal activity. If you think that legal strategy out, then in time, I can hold you as a car owner responsible for somebody else driving a car criminally. I don't think that's a good path to go down. Thank you.
Thank you, Bob. Okay, Katie Hathaway, what about the legal precedent that has been set now in criminally charging the parents, the Crumbleys, with manslaughter in the deaths that were caused by their child?
See how this plays out as we see it unfold. And as we know, we're going to see another tragedy occur. And just the time will tell to see how this, if it does set a precedent going forward. Some states have secure firearms laws and others do not. Florida does have one. It's pretty weak. And if a child finds a gun that is loaded and has access to it, the penalty is only a misdemeanor. So time will tell if this does set a precedent for other cases going forward.
Yeah, charging Jennifer and James Crumbley with manslaughter for allegedly permitting their son Ethan access to the gun used at Oxford High School. It does send a very strong message people who like this move think it will at least give parents second thoughts about securing their weapons at home. The other side of the argument is that involuntary manslaughter could be applied to any gross negligence that results in death. Some have opined that heightened parental responsibility standards is a solution that both sides of the gun debate could actually get behind. Manslaughter is defined as murder without malice, murder without the intent to kill. The laws in Michigan, we should note, are different than here in Florida, Katie, too. Katie, we should mention, too, that you knew the Crumbly family here in this area, even though you didn't know the two parents. Is that right?
Yes, I was born and raised in Jacksonville Beach. And as you know, we're a small community here in Jacksonville, and we're all connected in one way or another. And like you said, I did not know the parents, but I did know the family.
549-2937. Jason in San Marco. Hi, Jason. Good morning.
Good morning, Melissa. Just want to say I feel like it would be reasonable to require gun owners to have a limited liability insurance policy so that when guns are, either stolen or when they are, they are discharged accidentally within a home, those bullets could leave the home and you can hurt someone who lives next door or a passerby or whatever. I just don't see how we're ever going to get any traction on any of this until we get some real leadership from the right side of the political aisle on this. They've been held captive by the gun manufacturing lobby, which is the NRA. And without leadership from the Republican conservative side of the political aisle, you are dead in the water on this issue. But I think that there's certain reasonable requests could be made. But without that leadership, nothing's going to happen. It's not going to happen. Sorry. And I appreciate you taking my call.
Thank you, Jason. Katie, it is remarkable to see that wide bipartisan majorities of Americans want sensible gun policies while still protecting the right to bear arms. Things like closing the gun show loophole, where you can buy a firearm outside normal channels even if you shouldn't have one. A waiting period for a background check. These kinds of things have strong bipartisan support, and yet there remains so many obstacles politically to making these kinds of changes. Now, Moms Demand is a bipartisan group, and if you could talk a little bit about how Moms Demand came about and how you advocate for these kinds of legislative and political changes.
Sure. We are a nonpartisan movement, grassroots movement of volunteers advocating for to end gun violence on all forms. And Shannon Watts started Moms Demand Action after the awful tragedy that happened at Sandy Hook Elementary School. And there are chapters in every state across America. We have around 6 million supporters, and we advocate for common sense laws to make our communities safer. And we also, like I said, advocate through our Be Smart campaign on secure storage. So like the caller said, it can be frustrating. We haven't had federal laws passed on gun safety in years. But our volunteers have advocated at the state level and are making changes in state houses every year to keep communities safe from gun violence.
A number of states have passed what are known as red flag laws, right? And Moms Demand has been involved in those pieces of legislation where it is just a way to keep a gun out of the hands of a violent or unstable person, correct?
That's correct. And Florida does have a risk protection order, red flag law. It was implemented after this school shooting in Parkland in 2018.
Yeah. 549-2937. Chelsea in Putnam County. Hi, Chelsea.
Hey, I have a comment about what the gentleman said about, charging somebody if your car is used in a crime. Your car is used for other purposes. A 9mm is only used to kill people. So that's what I'm thinking.
Yeah, right. I mean, there's only one purpose for a gun is to injure or kill someone. You're right. Thank you for that, Chelsea. And Katie Hathaway, here's an email from Ricardo. How about a simple capitalist solution? Require insurance for gun ownership. Let the industry assess risk and hand out consequences for not safely securing a deadly weapon. What about that argument, Katie?
I personally believe that gun owners should be held accountable if the result in death from their own gun. That's my personal opinion. But we need to step back and look at the bigger picture. The gun lobby has for decades glorified firearm usage among children, and sometimes arguing that children as young as 10 should have access to assault rifles. And they oppose the minimum age requirements to purchase firearms with deadly consequences. So we need to step back and look at the bigger picture and how we can go forward and make change in our country.
Let's go to a few tweets as we talk with Katie Hathaway from Moms Demand about the Michigan school shooting and calls for safe weapons storage information to be sent to local parents. Lane tweets the show, just a reminder, your older kids can access even a properly stored weapon. Check on your firearm frequently. Susan tweets the show, didn't the Supreme Court Heller decision say no laws could be passed to require guns be locked at home? Gun possession rights under Heller, that was a landmark Supreme Court case, the District of Columbia versus Heller. Can you talk about that, Katie? That involved, the 2008 Heller case involved a challenge to the District of Columbia's ban on handguns.
I'm not here today to talk about the Heller case. I'm here today to talk about what happened in Michigan and how we can go forward to make sure tragedies like this do not continue to occur. Instead of addressing root causes of gun violence, we've been training children to do drills in school to make them less likely to be killed. And this is not the best solution, and we have to say enough. We know 80% of shooters under the age of 18 get the gun they use from their home or the homes of friends and relatives, like you said. And so we must do something proactive in this moment to make sure the next tragedy out of school does not occur.
Here is an email from MG. The mother of the Sandy Hook shooter bought him and trained him in a multitude of lethal weapons. Parents of a child under 18 absolutely need to be charged, she says. Per local statistics, nearly 600 guns have been reported stolen from Jacksonville cars this year, according to local police. And that's despite JSO constantly trying to remind people not to leave unsecured weapons lying around. But obviously that message isn't getting through. Here's another tweet from a listener. The parents in Michigan bought the kid the gun, didn't properly lock it up, didn't mind him searching to buy his own ammunition. When you go through the chain of events, Katie, that happened at the school in Michigan and how the guidance counselors actually called in this child's parents, they knew something was terribly amiss. They obviously didn't do enough to stop tragedy from happening. That kind of chain of events, I think, sends a chill down the spine of every educator in America when they see that there had been an opportunity to stop this shooting rampage from happening, and yet it still happened. And
yeah,
it's terrifying for parents who have kids of school age, including those that'll be at the meeting tonight.
Yeah, like we said, that school had many safety measures in place, including a full-time sheriff's deputy, security cameras. They had regular active shooter drills. I understand, like you said, the teachers had reported to officials some worrisome behavior, and yet all the measures weren't enough to stop that school shooting because the students simply had access to a gun at home.
So what inspired you to get involved with Moms Demand, Katie?
As a parent and just a concerned citizen, I watched the news unfold almost daily. And what got me off the sideline was back a few years ago when my then 7-year-old came home and told me that he knew his classroom was going to be the first shot up at school because it was closest to the front of the school. And he had just finished watching an active shooter drill. And my heart sank, and I said, this can't be our reality. So I got off the sideline and started our local chapter here in Jacksonville Beach.
I see. And when it comes to active shooter drills, there's now some data to show that they're actually damaging kids psychologically too, even though they do try to prepare children for this horrific situation, which has unfortunately become normalized in this country. As a parent,
True, yeah.
as a parent, what are your thoughts about that? I mean, schools are obviously trying to protect children any way they can in the absence of responsible gun laws in this country. But are these drills
Yeah.
damaging kids?
Time will tell. We're raising a school shooting generation, it seems, and active shooter drills seem to be traumatizing an entire generation of children. And there's little proof that these drills actually help save lives. As a volunteer, I participated in these drills in my children's school, and I have seen the range of emotions that it causes. And I personally was impacted, and I was traumatized during one because I thought it was a real drill, a real active shooter situation. So I, like you said, there's no proof that these are really saving lives.
You know, it's interesting when older generations talk about the active shooter drills. They say they were traumatized by the Cold War era and having to get under their desks in case there was a nuclear attack from the USSR, having to be trained to run to a fallout shelter, that kind of thing. There are plenty of people old enough to remember those days, and you know, it's really sad to see this happening again in a different way in our school systems. But all of that said, you'll be on hand tonight at the school board meeting. Do you plan to talk about this during public comment?
I do plan to submit a public comment card and ask Dr. Green and the board to have a resolution to send home secure storage practices to all DCPS families to keep our kids safe.
Katie Hathaway, thanks for being with us. Katie is the lead of the local chapter of Moms Demand Action on Gun Sense in America. Thanks, Katie.
Thank you so much, Melissa.
And it's election day in Duval County. The polls are open now in a special election to replace the late city councilman at large, Tommy Hazouri. 2 Republicans and 2 Democrats are on the ballot. This is a first election. If none of the candidates get 50% plus 1 of the ballots, there will be a runoff in a few months. Regardless of how it shakes out, everyone should go and vote. Even though this is a small special election, this is your chance to have your voice heard on our local government. So please go vote at your nearest precinct. If you don't know where it is, just go to DuvalElections.com and make sure you make a plan to go vote today before 7 p.m. Check your voter registration status, too. Anyone who lives in Duval County is eligible to vote in this citywide city council special election. Go vote, folks. Much more still ahead. Later, how Yoga for Change is getting new resources to battle Florida's opioid crisis. But up next.
Build Back Better represents an enormous economic opportunity for the country, specifically in continuing to build out our clean energy economy.
The Build Back Better Act and clean energy jobs here in Florida. That's next.
My name's Casey Morrell, and I'm a producer and director for NPR's afternoon news magazine, All Things Considered. The job of a show director is directing our engineer and our hosts and guiding them through what's coming up in that broadcast. It's kind of like being the conductor on a very fast-moving train. The show has a specific clock, and if you imagine the show as a train, it has to get to specific stations at exactly the same time every single day. It's fun. It's a fun job. I'm a member of 3 different NPR stations. I've lived in a bunch of different places, and one thing that has helped me feel like each of those places was home was my local NPR station. When you donate to this station, you are directly supporting shows that you love and all the work behind the scenes that keeps them up and running. Here is how to give.
Please call 353-9528 or visit wjct.org/radio.
Welcome back. The passage of the Build Back Better Act is expected to bring clean energy jobs to Florida, among other benefits. To find out more, I spoke with Zach Amitai. He's Southeast advocate for E2 environmental entrepreneurs. Here's that conversation. Hey, Zach, good to talk to you. Thanks for joining us.
Melissa, you too. Thank you so much for having me.
Let's talk about how Build Back Better will invest in clean energy jobs in America. Bring us up to date. Should this become the law of the land, what kinds of investments will we be seeing, particularly here in Florida?
Yeah, absolutely. Thanks for the question, Melissa. So Build Back Better, like you're saying, represents an enormous economic opportunity for the country, specifically in continuing to build out our clean energy economy. You and your viewers or your listeners might already be aware, Florida is already home to over 150,000 clean energy jobs, and that's jobs in every single of Florida's 67 counties, and that also includes almost 10,000 jobs in the Jacksonville area. And what Build Back Better would do, if passed, is invest over $550 billion over the coming 10 years in further deploying clean energy technologies across the country, including in Florida. And that, of course, would drive a lot of economic activity and a lot of job growth to build off the existing workforce.
Let's talk about some specifics.
Sure.
BBB will extend tax credits for solar, wind, and electric vehicles. It'll make it easier for us to buy EVs. Consumers will get rebates for heat pumps and high efficiency hot water heaters and clothes dryers.
Mm-hmm.
There's lots of things like that. Money to help homeowners weatherize their homes. But when you talk about jobs, what are some specifics about job growth that you could share with us?
So we don't know exactly how many jobs the Build Back Better Act will generate, but what we do know is the back after the Great Recession, the American Recovery and Reinvestment Act of 2009 invested about $100 billion in clean energy technologies, and that produced almost a million job years. So if we extrapolate that out, the Build Back Better is almost 6 times that number of investments. So we're certainly talking about creating millions of jobs across the country. If it follows that same pattern, we're talking about 5 or 6 million job years created. And, those are folks installing solar panels on rooftops in neighborhoods or building out utility-scale solar in agricultural areas, bringing economic activity to rural areas. Those are folks manufacturing electric vehicle components and installing electric vehicle charging stations, and also folks developing kind of new innovations or technologies in the clean energy space that aren't even, commercialized or at scale yet, that could really get us kind of over the hump and see us build towards the clean energy future that we all want.
Of course, Build Back Better has passed the U.S. House. It now faces an uphill battle in the Senate. So what are your thoughts about the politics of this legislation getting through the process?
Yeah, absolutely. We feel really, really positive and optimistic about the politics around this. An enormous amount of negotiating has already happened on both sides of the political aisle and in both chambers in Congress. We do anticipate some further changes and revisions made to Build Back Better as it works its way through the Senate. But, just given the economic benefits that this investment will bring to every district, every county, every state across the country, regardless of political affiliation, we feel really good about the prospects and getting the votes it needs to make its way through the reconciliation process in the Senate.
People have focused a lot on some of the other parts of this legislation, what it would do for making childcare more affordable for families, for example. But this climate piece is really a huge part of it, right?
Oh, absolutely. And from our perspective, E2 is a network of business leaders from across the country who are kind of unified under a common cause to see climate action taken by the country as an economic imperative. And our perspective on this element of Build Back Better and the perspective of the of the business network we represent is that these are investments that we need. Number one, to combat the rising cost of climate change. We're already seeing just this past year over $100 billion in damages to our economy driven by climate change-driven natural disasters. And then on the flip side, there's, again, the enormous economic opportunity that these investments represent with millions of jobs generated across the country, keeping up with the investments made by places like China and India to keep us competitive in the global economy. and also to continue to drive down the cost of energy generation across the country. Thanks to the investments that we've made historically, we're already seeing price parity when it comes to energy generated by wind and solar. And with additional investments in technologies like battery solutions and grid modernization, we can expect those prices to continue to decrease, which means, more money in the pocketbooks of families across the country, including in Jacksonville, and of course, businesses, more funds available to them to continue to invest in their companies and build out, continue to build out their business.
What's your response to critics of this legislation that it's too much spending, that America cannot afford it?
Yes. So the E2's perspective, the business network's perspective, is that we can't afford not to make these investments. Again, year over year, we're seeing rising costs as a result of inaction on climate, rising costs from climate-driven natural disasters. And if we continue to kind of, sit on our hands here and not take the necessary action, those costs are going to continue to increase, going to create disruptions to supply chains, going to be impacting businesses, across the economy, not just clean energy companies, but businesses in sectors like real estate and other forms of manufacturing and finance. And that's part of the reason that the E2 network exists. We bring together business voices from across the economic spectrum who all recognize that there's a real imperative here to take this action. So, the price is considerable, but the vast majority of the package is paid for. And we know that the investments that it makes will pay for themselves and then some in the long run, both in reducing the impacts of climate and also in generating economic activity, new jobs, and the opportunities that come along with that for folks across the country.
Zach Amitai, thanks for joining us. He's the Southeast advocate for E2 Environmental Entrepreneurs. Thanks for being with us.
Melissa, thanks again for having me. Really appreciate it. Have a good rest of your day.
Remember when you started listening to public radio? A whole world opened up with all these different voices, and you were all ears. Hey, I'm Elsa Chang, and on this NPR station, there is always someone new to discover. That's possible thanks to listeners who donate. And now that you're in the know, if you've never given, become a new donor now. Here's how.
Please call 353-9528 or visit wjct.org/radio.
Well, back in 2019, the local nonprofit Yoga for Change received funding from the Florida Blue Foundation. They used it to conduct a study on the impact their Yoga for Change programming has been having on the opioid epidemic in Florida. Now, the study expanded Yoga for Change, which was founded in Jacksonville, into 3 additional regions around the state that are high in opiate overdoses and deaths: Tampa Bay, South Florida, and Central Florida. Now, all of this led to the creation of a new curriculum at Yoga for Change, Yoga for Recovery, it's called. Michelle LeClaire is executive director at Yoga for Change, and she joins us now with more. Michelle, good morning.
Hi, good morning.
And congratulations on your expansion. So tell us about this work Yoga for Change is doing to help combat the opioid epidemic, not just in Jacksonville, but now all over Florida.
Yeah, so in 2019, we received almost $600,000 from the Florida Blue Foundation to conduct a 3-year study across the state. And we targeted major cities like Tampa Bay, Central Florida, Orlando area, and the South Florida region because of the fact that they have high opioid-related overdoses and deaths. So we were able to conduct this study and evaluate our program based on the funds. And so we've had some really positive outcomes of that study, and I'm really excited to be here today to tell you about it.
Yeah, what'd you find out?
So we've created the proprietary curriculum that you mentioned called Yoga for Recovery, and studied in those strategic areas And the research-based trauma-informed curriculum was specifically designed to support current opioid use treatment and help reduce addictive and supportive strategies for prevention. And so what we were able to find after our 3-year study was that our students experienced an average change after one class, an 18% increase in their mood, and a 27% decrease in stress, and an 18% decrease in pain. All of these are linked to recovery and some of the things that people who are in recovery experience. And so our program can directly correlate to these issues and provide some relief for our students.
This is great. This is research-based, trauma-informed curriculum, Yoga for Recovery. This helps people reduce addictive behavior. It improves their physical and mental health. Let me disclose I'm a huge yoga practitioner myself. It helps me with my stress, anxiety. But tell us about how this is going to work around Florida going forward. Tell us more about how Yoga for Change works, not only with people dealing with substance abuse, but people who are incarcerated and other populations.
Yeah, so Yoga for Change serves 4 major populations across the state. Those in recovery we mentioned, veterans, youth, as well as individuals who are experiencing incarceration. So we've been able to provide programming for all 4 of those populations in Jacksonville. And thanks to the Florida Blue Foundation, we've been able to expand programming for the recovery population into those 3 regions in the lower part of the state. We now, after concluding this 3-year study, we're now very excited to start expanding the program.
No, we lost you there. Can we get her back? Expanding the program of Yoga for Change around the state. Of course, this nonprofit was founded here in Jacksonville, and through a donation from Florida Blue and other efforts, they are moving statewide, helping people who have PTSD, injury, substance abuse, other trauma, veterans, incarcerated people, people with mental health conditions, and kids who've experienced abuse, neglect, and other trauma. We're speaking with the executive director of Yoga for Change, Michelle LeClaire, and she's back on the line. Hi, Michelle, go ahead. You said you're expanding. Tell us more.
Yes, I'm so sorry about that. We've been able to expand the populations that we serve outside of just the recovery population, which was the initial intent of the Florida Blue study. So now, as the study is concluded, we are excited to bring programming to youth, those who are incarcerated, and veterans outside of Jacksonville, so also in that Tampa Bay, Central Florida, and South Florida regions.
These are trauma-informed instructors. They teach yoga to people. And people go to yoga classes all over the place, but this is a special kind of yoga class, and you're directing it at special populations. How do people get connected to Yoga for Change, and how do they access this help?
Yeah, that's a great question. So we provide programming at different facilities across the state, and we also provide programming virtually for those individuals who are not necessarily being serviced by a facility. So anybody who is interested to receive our programming can contact us directly through our website at www.y4c.org, and we can plug them into the appropriate program in the appropriate area in which they live.
And is the intention to make this free or nearly free to people who need it?
Yes, absolutely. We are a nonprofit. All of the funds that we collect go back into our programming, and our programming is free to the individual.
Which is so great because, of course, a lot of people who need it the most, maybe they can't afford to pay $13 or $14 a class, which is, I think, what a lot of people tend to pay for yoga. Should yoga be covered by insurance, given that there are clear mental and physical benefits to people in these populations?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, we provide a holistic, research-based approach to recovery as well as other, the other populations that we serve. And it would do nothing but behoove the insurance industry to look at the research that's being conducted and realize the positive benefits that we're creating in our community.
It is amazing to see how Yoga for Change has grown its impact over the years around Florida. Nearly 1 million adults in this state have serious mental illness, trauma of some kind. You have worked with thousands of people in recovery, 6 facilities in North Florida, 12 facilities across the rest of the state, funded by Florida Blue Foundation, dozens of classes per month. Yoga's benefits are well known: decreased blood pressure, decreased levels of pain, improved mood, improved sleep. When you work with people who are hurting and they start to see the benefits, what do they say to you about the changes that they are experiencing, the positive changes?
Yeah, I think a lot of people are surprised sometimes that it comes from yoga, but they're able to make that connection. I actually have a really great quote that I'd like to share with you from one of our students. So the quote goes like this: "Now I have techniques and tools to keep me sober, and we learn about relationships and what we need to do to help us along the way." And I just think that simple statement is very impactful, directly from one of our students who has benefited from our programming through Florida Blue Foundation.
Well, congrats on all the success, and thanks, Michelle. She's Michelle LeClaire, Executive Director at Yoga for Change. Keep up the great work.
Thank you so much.
And you know what, folks? We are so excited about the thousands of you who have subscribed to our new vertical, Jax Today. You can do it too. Go to jaxtoday.org, just enter your email and hit subscribe. You are then signed up for a free daily local newsletter that will come into your inbox every single morning, giving you the news and ways to get involved in Northeast Florida. And if you subscribe, you get content that is only on Jax Today with columnists Nikisha Williams, A.G. Gankarski, and former legislator Rob Bradley, plus the Jackson, analysis and original reporting dedicated to urbanism and culture on the First Coast. There's so much content here, and we have a lot more planned for Jax Today. So get in on the ground floor, as they say. Go to jaxtoday.org, enter your email address, and hit subscribe. And we'll start sending you news and fresh content every single morning. It's free. Speaking of culture and neighborhoods, up next, local advocate Jack Meeks on revitalizing the city's neighborhoods and the lessons he's learned. That's after this.
Hakka Kitchen, a new restaurant from the House of Leaf and Bean, offers plant-based Chinese countryside cuisine made from fresh, organic ingredients, paired with hand-picked teas and fine wines. Info at lovehakkakitchen.com.
If you can't find a Christmas tree this year, look at Canada. It usually exports millions of trees to the U.S., but this year Canadians are keeping most of those trees for themselves. One culprit, climate change. Record droughts and floods have hurt tree farms, and many tree farmers have left the business entirely. What's behind this year's shortage of Christmas trees? It's on the world.
This afternoon at 3, here on WJCT News 89.9.
I'm Scott Tong. The divorce rate is going up for albatrosses. These seabirds usually mate for life, but climate change is warming seawaters, decreasing food supply, and fueling irreconcilable differences.
As the temperature of the water goes up, so does the probability of divorce.
That's next time on Here and Now.
Today at 2 on WJCT News 89.9.
More schools are encouraging students to speak up about sexual assault, but Hawthorne Academy in North Carolina is in the spotlight for suspending one student for a claim she made and asking another to sign an NDA after reporting an incident on campus. We'll find out more and hear how recent local reporting has forced big changes at the school. Next time on 1A.
Today, starting at 10 on WJCT News 89.9.
The Jacksonville Music Experience from WJCT Public Media is your ticket to the local scene. Turn up the volume on reviews, curated playlist, music history, and more at jacksmusic.org. Play it local, play it loud.
Welcome back. Well, Jacksonville is a city of far-flung and diverse neighborhoods, from the beaches to the urban core to the south and north sides, the west side. There's been a lot of discussion lately about revitalizing downtown, but other points on the local map need attention too. Local advocate Jack Meeks has some experience with all of this. I spoke with him. Here's that conversation. Jack Meeks, good to talk to you. Thanks for joining us.
Oh, glad to. Thank you.
You know, the big topic all around town right now is neighborhoods, improving them. People are upset about, you know, the degradation of their neighborhoods, whether it's garbage not being picked up or other things. You've been really involved in neighborhood improvement for a long time, and you have a lot to share with insights about how Jacksonville is really a tale of two cities. What are your thoughts about that in light of the recent challenges the city's facing?
Well, that's probably giving some other neighborhoods that I would call, and the neighborhoods that I lived in before my wife and I bought our home in historic Springfield, favored neighborhoods. So when I lived in San Marco or Granada, as an example, you know, I didn't really need to ask the city for everything because they pretty much did everything I was expecting. And it's been a lot different in historic Springfield. Now, I suppose some of the other areas or the favored areas of town are getting a little bit of a taste of what it feels like when the city doesn't do what we expect.
Right. What would be an example of that sticks out in your mind?
Oh, gosh. You know, things are so much better in our neighborhood now when we first bought our home now over 18 years ago. But, I mean, just a few examples. These fall under half a dozen or so different areas. But a few examples, you know, some of this was crime. I'd never had my tire slashed before. I'd never had my property broken into before. I'd never had someone take a shot at me before. So that falls under safety, you know, our personal safety and our property safety. You know, then I'd not experienced before having busted sidewalks or non-existent sidewalks or busted streets. So that was all new. Some of that has been the crime, especially in our neighborhood, is way down from what it was all those years ago. We still don't have infrastructure that's akin to what I was used to all those years ago. And then something I never even thought about before, code enforcement and zoning. You know, we still have an issue in that where people, not as much as we used to in our neighborhood, where people don't keep up their properties and the city runs fines that just become meaningless over a period of time. And then, you know, another issue, if you go to Hogan's Creek, which is a few blocks from where we live, you know, it's thoroughly polluted. And now at least groundwork is, you know, it's in there on their agenda to get Hogan's Creek cleaned up, which would be a tremendous asset for our whole city. And something interesting, too, that I've thought about that I never really did before until we were in our neighborhood, because I see folks with mental health problems every day, that these issues affect and are affected by mental health.
Yeah, absolutely. And so a whole array of issues affecting neighborhoods, particularly the ones that you say are unfavored versus favored. You've been involved in neighborhood improvement and rehabbing buildings in Springfield and in the city. And so as you contemplate getting more involved in public life, what do you think would be one easy way the city could be doing a better job, at least in terms of the stuff that people can see that's right in front of their face, whether it's infrastructure improvements or garbage pickup, the obvious things?
Well, I think, you know, some of these things are big ticket items. You know, there have been things in the paper about it costing into the billions of dollars to get people on the sewer system as opposed to having septic tanks. But one thing, and I don't know how much this would cost, but it would begin to show just more pride in our city, is having things really cleaned up. You know, the level of trash around our city, and even it's been probably a few weeks since I've walked on the north side riverbank, you know, but that's our premium viewpoint in town. And even that's not kept up like it should be. So somehow beginning, and maybe, Melissa, maybe it's works both ways. Maybe beginning to clean the city up more would give people more pride in our city. And if we have more pride in our city, maybe we would expect more than what we've expected in the past.
I think that is a very good point. Well, let's continue the conversation. Jack Meeks, good to get your insights. Thanks for joining us.
Oh, well, thank you.
And that's our show. Thanks so much for listening and for calling and tweeting and emailing the show. Again, drop your email into our new vertical at Jax Today and subscribe. Go to jaxtoday.org, enter your email, and get the news in your inbox every morning. Thanks so much to our show team, too. Producer Heather Schatz, Director Josh Torres, Associate Producer Catherine Hobbs, Editorial Director Jessica Palumbo, News Editor Randy Roguski, Station Manager David Lucken, and all of us here at WJCT News. Have a great day, everyone. I'm Melissa Ross. We'll be back at 9 a.m. tomorrow. Again, there's an election today across Duval County. If you are within the sound of my voice and you live in Duval County, go vote in that special election. Get out there and cast your ballot before 7 o'clock tonight.
Support for First Coast Connect is provided by Baptist Health and the North Florida TPO.
Baptist Health is a proud supporter of First Coast Connect with Melissa Ross. Baptist Health, committed to building a healthier community for all of us. More info at 202-4YOU or BaptistJax.com.
Wayne Hogan